The warm orange glow of the setting sun cascaded down onto Dazai as he sat patiently on a nearby bench, checking the clock on his phone every once in a while. Dazai had memorized your schedule perfectly, and he knew that at any moment now, you were going to leave your apartment to spend some time with your friends. His warm chocolate gaze was dazed as a dreamy sigh left his lips. Just the mere thought of you was enough for Dazai's stomach to erupt with thousands of butterflies as his ink-black heart raced in his chest, threatening to break out of his rib cage at any second. He wanted to know a bit more about you, and stalking all of your social media just wasn't good enough for him. To be frank, he didn't like the fact that you had any social media to begin with, since it meant that any other stranger could try to taint his darling angel. Due to his insatiable curiosity, Dazai had picked up a new little hobby: stalking you. Of course, though he didn't really like to call it like that, heavens no, that had such a nasty ring to it. He just liked to stay close behind you at all times, and if he could, he would follow you around for weeks, if not months, if his schedule, or rather, Kunikida would allow him. Kunikida would always somehow find a way to dump some boring paperwork onto Dazai, and he complained and groaned each and every time. His mind would always wander back towards the one he adored the most in this world, and Dazai would always find himself getting lost in his own little fantasy of his beloved. He already owned a number of your possessions, and he'd always try to add something new every day, be it a shirt, notebook, old trash, underwear, literally anything. As long as it belonged to you, Dazai would treasure it with his whole heart. A part of him was curious to know if you ever deducted that you were being followed for months now. Come on. Leaving that window open in the dead of the night might as well be a welcome mat to the brown-haired detective, as he always found a way to slip inside of your room undetected. He knew better than that, of course. Dazai made sure to never leave any evidence behind himself, and he was always so stealthy and subtle about everything, always hiding in the dark shadows of the streets as he admired his sweetheart from afar. His pining would soon end, of course, as Dazai finally had enough information about you. He was already confident that he could easily sweep you off your feet with that classic charming smile of his, but this time he craved something more. He wanted you to stay by his side for good. He wanted you to only look at him, to think only about him, and him alone. No one else was allowed to steal your heart away from him, and any fool that even tried to would just mysteriously disappear. Dazai couldn't help but to chuckle at his own dark thoughts, but he couldn't help himself. You were already holding so much power over him, and you weren't even physically present. Now that's some serious achievement. Yeah, he guessed he could say that he was a little obsessed, but to be frank, he didn't mind. This rabbit hole in which he continued to fall deep within gave Dazai a new life, a fire for him to mend and keep, and he was not going to let it die out. The scorching hot flames of his ever-growing obsession had consumed his heart, and he was going to make you feel the exact same way he was feeling. He was ready to take your hand and leap into this whole twisted love and endless obsession. As long as you were by his side, he was unstoppable.